Welcome to Seoul Talker. Subscribe to our channel and like our videos. It really helps us make better videos. So this video is the last of hang around places in Seoul. It's definitely not the least important among the 5 sections of Seoul that I've explained. To tell you the truth, I think this area is the core and the key of Seoul, because I call the central part of Seoul the real Seoul, because it carries both the history all the way from Joseon Dynasty and it has a lot of modern vibe in it as well. The biggest characteristic of Seoul is that it has both old and the new inside the city. You can find anything from prehistoric years to the 21st century in Seoul. And the best area to see and feel the old and the new is the central part of Seoul. In Korea, the old things or the retro is sort of in fashioned, hip or hot, whatever you want to call it. And that's what brings a lot of young people into the central part of Seoul, because the central part of Seoul has been fairly old, and there are a lot of old things in the central part of Seoul which the young Koreans aren't used to, and for them, the old is what's new for them. And one of the area is Uchiro. Uchiro is an area where there were a lot of steel selling kind of places. It's sort of rusty like Mule, which we made a video on about 2 to 3 months ago. And this is what the Uchiro vibe is like at night. Some of you may have seen the square on TV. That's probably because this is the area where Koreans all poured out with candles, protesting against the president and asking for the former president, Park, to be impeached. It was also the area where people poured out to cheer for World Cup games in 2002. What stands in the area when people are not pouring out? A statue of 2 most admired people in Korean history, King Sejong and General Lee Sun-shin. Sejong invented many things, including the Korean alphabet Hangul, and Lee Sun-shin saved Korea from the Japanese invasion in the 16th century. Central part of Seoul is an area that used to be the capital of Joseon Dynasty, the dynasty that existed in the Korean peninsula before the Japanese annexation. Seoul, or the old name of Seoul, which was Hanyang, was limited to this area even at the end of the Japanese annexation era, which was until 1945. And Seoul was primarily what is now the central part of Seoul until the early 1960s. The name of Seoul, or Hanyang, was changed to Gyeongsang during the Japanese annexation era because the Japanese changed the name to make it clear that there was no Joseon or Korea anymore, and to make Seoul the capital of Gyeonggi province, not the capital of Korea. Gyeongsang means capital of Gyeonggi province. So Seoul's name has changed from Hanyang to Gyeongsang to Seoul. Anyways, the central part of Seoul was all there was when people said Seoul until the early 1960s. All the areas that I've been showing you for past month were part of Gyeonggi province just until 60 years ago. That's why Korean traditional buildings and palaces are concentrated in the central part of Seoul. There's a town called Bukchon. In Bukchon, you can see what the Korean traditional houses look like. This is a way up to Bukchon, and the streets on the way to Bukchon gives a cozy and warm kind of feeling when walking on the street because of the walls on both sides. The only thing is, these are actually Korean style houses that were built in the Japanese annexation era and was sold like apartments. Houses were built as a project and were sold in lots. A man named Chung Se-kwon not only built and sold Korean style houses like these, but also supported movements to maintain Korean language and culture during the Japanese annexation era. Well, with that history behind us, the real reason you must visit Bukchon is this awesome view from the top of the hill. It's definitely worth going up all the way. There's an area not far from Bukchon called Insadong. There are lots of shops that sell Korean traditional goods and teas. It's one of the most visited places by tourists. Jongno is a street that existed from the Joseon dynasty. It is actually Seoul's main road during the Joseon dynasty that led all the way up to the king's palaces. The road is now filled with skyscrapers filled with offices. Cheonggyecheon is a stream that flows in the middle of the central part of Seoul, and a lot of people come out here for a walk, even during daytime. I used to come out here to walk at lunchtime when I worked in a company located around here. Myeongdong and Namdaemun Market is a very famous shopping place for foreigners. Koreans do visit Namdaemun Market from time to time for shopping, but Myeongdong is a shopping place primarily for foreigners. The real center of Seoul is actually the Namsan Tower. The tower can be seen from almost anywhere in the central part of Seoul, and even from the far east or the far western side of Seoul when the weather is good. Now that's about all on the central part of Seoul, but there are a lot more places to look around in Seoul. And since the coronavirus situation in Seoul is better than before, we'll start showing you around Seoul in more detail. Our next stop is Yeonnam-dong, located on the northwestern side of Seoul. Want to know more about the area? Check out our video on the northwestern side of Seoul. You'll be able to get a brief idea on what the area will look like. And for more detail, subscribe to our channel and like our videos. We'll show you around Yeonnam-dong next week.